Happy Monday. I'm so excited for today's episode because we will be talking about yoga, but some of you might be surprised of the context of it.
Well, as you all know, Magda and I, we did our yoga teacher training in different time and in different places. But I think for us, maybe for some of our audience as well, it means much more than just the practice of asanas, but pranayama, meditation, and ethical philosophies as well. And in fact, for me, I have to say, I practice less asana right now, but more on the meditation ever since we
Yes, me
did
too.
our
The same.
meditation teacher training, honestly. And really, for me, is to have a balance between the mind, spirit, and the body as well. So it's really everyday life, yoga is involved.
Yes, so today Aka will join us. She is a yoga philosophy teacher. So let's say hi to Aka. Hi, Aka.
Hi, Aka.
Hello.
So I
Hi,
have a
everyone.
privilege to learn philosophy from Aka at my yoga teacher training at the Yoga Union. And I'm so happy that Aka is here with us and she will tell you more about philosophy of yoga because it's not what you think it is. Aka changed the whole thinking of my thoughts about yoga, and I'm so happy that you will have an opportunity to learn here from Aka. Aka, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aakamksha, but I generally ask everyone to call me Aka because that's easier. And I've been part of the yoga world since childhood, but I did my trainings in 2018. And since then, because I felt more attached to or more attracted to the philosophy part of yoga, and also pranayama and hatha yoga practices. That's where I focused, and that's how I met Magda.
So, Aka, can you tell us how your journey began?
So my journey specifically into yogic practices, it was since childhood because my father has been a gold medalist in yoga since his childhood. So yoga was always a
Wow.
part of us growing up. But it was not shared with us as a means of teaching or as a means of sharing with others. It was just a part of our life. And in 2018, even though I was a lawyer, but I was feeling very deeply unfulfilled with that life. So that's when I asked myself, okay, what else can I do? And because I already had a little bit knowledge in yoga and a little bit of practice, I decided to pursue yoga fully. That's when I did my 200 and 300 hours, and it was at an amazing school in India, Mahi Yoga. And since then, my teacher was kind enough to actually give me an opportunity to continue learning with him and continue teaching with him a little bit. That's where it became stronger and stronger as a part of my life every single day. And I've been with it every single day since then.
You know,
So you
that's
and
the
Magda
other
actually
thing.
share a
This
similar background,
yeah,
right?
that's the other thing. Like when Aka shared her
Ah,
story on the
okay.
first philosophy class, I was like, yeah, that's my life too. We have the same background as a lawyers. And Aka, can you
Nice.
tell us what the word yoga means? Because right now me and C knows what the yoga word mean, but there are a lot of people, especially here in Europe, who are saying like, I'm going to yoga to do yoga, but it's not about doing yoga, it's about the everyday life of yoga. So can you tell us more?
Sure, dear. So, yoga, as you may remember, it has multiple meanings. But traditionally, basically, yoga is known as a philosophy. There are several philosophies in Hindu culture, and one of those is yogic philosophy. It is known as Yoga Darshan. It is just another way of looking at life, behaving with life, how we are interacting with every part of life, and that includes the self. Okay? So, yoga, I'll just quickly share the multiple meanings of yoga with you. First, and it is generally given as the most ancient, is union. Feeling union or connection within yourself, around yourself, in your body, mind, in your energy, all those aspects all together. And traditionally, it does mean union with your own soul and the universal soul. Then there's another meaning which comes out of Bhagavad Gita, which says Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam, which translates to yoga is skill in action. Basically, the action here is our duties in life, and skill is the state of our mind when we are performing those duties. So, as per Bhagavad Gita, yoga is your ability to do your everyday duties in your life with a completely stable state of mind, where nothing from the outside and nothing from within is able to take you away from those duties. And the last one I'll share is the one that became the most popular in the present times because it is from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He defined yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Loosely translated, it says yoga is stopping the movements of the mind. So basically, as per the father of yoga is a peaceful state of mind. What unfortunately has happened, and it has happened only in the past, I think, 6 or 7 decades, is that when yogic practices and yogic knowledge was taken to the West, unfortunately, even though they were using and practicing only the asana, they chose to call the asana part also as yoga. And that's where the confusion started. Asana is one part of yoga. We should not be calling just asana yoga. This confusion would not have been there, but it is there because in the beginning, that's how it was shared that this is yoga, but actually, it is one very important but small part of yoga.
I like that because it's really about the balance between the mind, the body, and the spirit too. And you've talked about the basic of yoga, but what about the 8 limbs? Can you share more?
So, as I was saying, that Patanjali, who gave us the Yoga Sutras, because of his contribution of the Yoga Sutras, he has been given the title of the father of yoga. And in the Yoga Sutras, he has given us a specific way of doing things. We can call it his methodology. And that way is known as Ashtanga Yoga or 8 limbs of yoga. So out of these 8 limbs, actually he says the first 6 are within our control, the last 2 are not within our control. And I'll just quickly go through the 8 limbs. First one, yam, and I will put first and second together because yam and niyam, these are principles. We can call them principles of behavior, principles of thinking. As a yogi, once we start on the path of yoga, these principles, to adopt them and try to live by them as much as possible, becomes automatically a part of our life. There are 5 principles each in yam and niyam. After that, there is the third limb, which is asana, which gained the most popularity, the physical practices through which we discipline our body and try to make the seated pose more comfortable for us. Fourth one is pranayama. I know that most popularly it is known as breathing exercises, but the goal in pranayama is to have discipline or control over our breathing as much as possible. Fifth one is pratyahar. Pratyahar has been translated as sense withdrawal. This is considered a very important practice because if I have not learned to withdraw what my senses are receiving from the outside, then my mind will not be able to go to the next step, which is the 6th one, that is dharana. Dharana is the word for concentration. Concentration traditionally was done on any one mantra that your guru gave to you. And your mantra will remain your mantra for the rest of your life. All other practices may keep going up and down, but once you have chosen a mantra, it stays with you. The last 2, 7th is dhyan, which is meditation, and 8th is samadhi, which is self-realization. Self here being the soul. These 2, Patanjali has said, they are not within our control. So 1 to 6, from yam till dharana, till concentration, he has told us that these are the things that we can control. That automatically means that we can assume his point of telling us this was to help us in letting go of unhealthy expectations. If I try to control the things that are not within my control, I will stay disappointed, I will stay frustrated, or even worse, I will stay anxious. So as yogis, we are supposed to focus on limb number 1 to 6, yam till dharana, till concentration, just to give ourselves healthier expectations.
As we said here, let's take baby steps on that. So let's focus on yamas and niyamas first. Can you tell us more?
So Yam and Niyam are the first and second limbs out of the 8 limbs, and each of these limbs have 5 principles in them. Because Yam are given first, they are traditionally and generally considered the most important principles for everyone. Because here Patanjali has specifically not restricted the path just for yogis. He says that the Yam are universal principles and they are supposed to be followed by everyone at every place at every time. So I'll start with the first one. First yam is ahimsa, which translates as non-violence. We can also translate it as compassion, kindness, and generally, I would say that it always starts with the self. And I know that at present, the yogic path is interpreted in multiple ways, but traditionally, and we fully accept this, that your soul's path is your own path. I don't get to impose my path on you, you don't get to impose your path on me. So, whenever we are choosing any path, whatever principles we are learning, whatever practices we are learning, first we are supposed to apply them on ourselves fully. Why I always point this out in Ahimsa is because for so many people, kindness and compassion towards others is easier than towards themselves. But the problem is that kindness towards ourselves has not been learned fully. It is not considered true kindness. If I am acting kind towards you, but I am not kind towards myself, then it will not be called that I am being kind. It will be called that I am behaving kind or I am acting kind because I don't even know kindness feels like. So in ahimsa, I would say that we can interpret it in so many ways, but whatever your interpretation of compassion is, first choose to give it to yourself, then you share it on the outside. So that was ahimsa. Second one is satya. Satya is the word for truthfulness, honesty. In general, when we think about Satya, again, we tend to start with others. That I want others to be truthful to me, I want honesty from others, and of course, it is very important for us because when we are not given this truth, when we are not given this honesty by others, it breaks our trust. And whenever our trust is broken, we are unable to connect with each other, it deeply affects our mental health. But again, it's not just what we are getting from others, it is about living your own truth. We are supposed to find out what our truth is in our mind. We are supposed to bring our words in alignment with the truth that exists in our mind. And finally, we are supposed to do the actions in alignment with our truth. So, truth has these 3 levels first in the mind, then in the words, then in the actions. And actually, Patanjali says that once someone starts living completely truthfully, it relaxes the mind a lot. It allows us to be less anxious in our life.
Yeah, less stress. Yeah.
So before I go to the third one, I will just point out that ahimsa and satya, these two are the foundation for everything else in the 8 limbs. All the other principles, all the other practices are based out of these 2 principles. Now, third one is asteya. Asteya has been loosely translated as non-stealing, or we can say that it is don't take what is not yours. Again, it is based on the first 2. If you're a kind and compassionate person, if you're a truthful person, naturally you would not steal from others. So, fourth one is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya traditionally and still for those who live the life of monks, brahmacharya is translated as the practice of celibacy, not having sexual intercourse. But there was a specific purpose behind it, which was preservation of the energy within us. So for those of us who are not living the lives of monks, how do we understand brahmacharya at present? We simply label it as moderation. Moderation in everything that we are consuming, whatever we are watching regularly, whatever we are listening to, whatever we are smelling, whatever we are putting on our skin, and lastly, whatever we are eating or drinking. Because when we do not consume in moderation, whenever we are under consuming, or worse, whenever we are over consuming, it leaves us in a very drained state of energy. So, in general, the principle followed is that whatever I consume, I try to consume it in moderation, because not only is it good for my physical health, it is also good for the mental health. Whenever we are drained, we are not able to operate properly simply as a human being, let alone as a yogi who is supposed to have a lot of discipline. Now, the fifth, the last yam is aparigraha, and I would say it is one of the most important principles in yoga. Aparigraha is translated as non-greed, non-hoarding, non-possessiveness. See, this is extremely important because maybe at present we are not giving enough credit to our greed. But our greed, how strongly my mind is controlled by greed, will determine not only my relationship with money, not only my relationship with physical possessions, it will govern or control my relationship with family, with friends, with society, with everything else in life. All of that is controlled by our greed. And in our parigrah, it is extremely important to understand the difference between our needs and our wants. Needs of a human being in any country, in any culture, depending on what we are surrounded by, needs of a human being are very limited. But our wants, unfortunately, are unlimited. There's no limit to our wants. So if there is confusion in my mind between what I need and what I want, if I'm calling my wants my needs, I will never be satisfied, nothing will ever be enough, and greed will always take control of me. So, aparigraha, the last yam, is absolutely an essential step that we should work towards. And traditionally, one thing that was done is to regularly get rid of our belongings. Maybe every 2 weeks, if that's not possible, maybe once a month. Just go through our belongings and try to get rid of even one possession. It could be thing that I'm very deeply attached to. It could be anything maybe that is I'm not using anything. And getting rid does not mean just throwing it away. Getting rid means that I can find another use of it, or I can give it to someone who will find use or value in it. Okay.
I'm just
So
sitting and
now I'll
hearing it over and over again. I'm just like, I'm in this state when I was on my yoga teacher training. I was just pure listening to Aka. I love that. So, yeah, I'm giving you the space for the niyamas.
No, because I think it's also a very good reminder, even for myself. So because sometimes, like Magda said, people go to yoga classes mainly for asana. But sometimes we do tend to forget the meaning behind, the philosophy behind. And now that Aka is sharing, it really brings back memory for me. It brings back, refreshes my study of yoga. Is not just asana, but it's so much more than that. It's in everyday life. So I'm really taking notes as well while Aka is mentioning.
Okay, Aka, so let's go back to niyamas.
So niyama are the second limb out of the 8 limbs. And in so many places, we find that yam have been labeled as external and niyam have been labeled as internal. However, both of these principles can and should be applied externally as well as internally. So in niyam, there are 5 more principles. First one is shauch, which means purity, cleanliness. Of course, we can include first our body in it, showering every day, but that also includes sweating every day. Certain waste is removed through sweat. So in both yoga as well as Ayurveda, sweating once a day is truly recommended. And that does not mean profusely sweating, but doing some kind of movement that generated sweat. So after sweating, we take our shower, but not only that, about our physical body, in the cleanliness, our diet plays a very strong role. If regularly I'm consuming certain food which is very heavy for me to process and digest, then just by consuming the wrong quality food, I'm creating more waste in my body. So having good quality and enough quantity of food is also part of Shauch. And in Shauch, in purity, we also include our surroundings. Wherever I'm living, in a room, in an apartment, in a house, having a certain understanding of my own cleanliness and maintaining it around myself is very important. And this cleanliness also includes organization. that whatever is around me, I need to keep it in a certain way. Okay? In this organization, I'll just point out one more thing, because this organization is not just about physical possessions, organization in our daily routine. Because we are living in a flow along with the universe, along with the energy around us, everything else is working in a particular way. That means the human body naturally knows that certain actions are to be done every day. So if I'm not living in a particular routine, if I'm waking up randomly at different times, I'm going to bed randomly, I'm having my meals randomly, then my body is not living in a flow. It does not know when to release certain hormones, certain enzymes to help in the processes. So in that organization of our daily routine is also included. Okay. Now, second niyam is very important, and it is connected with the last yam. Second niyam is santosh, and santosh is connected with aparigraha. Santosh has been translated as contentment, and we can also call it gratefulness. As I said, it is connected with aparigraha because if my mind has not overcome its own greed, if my mind is confused between its needs and its wants, then my mind will never be able to reach a state of contentment or gratitude because it is stuck in survival mode. Whenever we don't have enough that we need, we naturally come into our survival mode. Okay, so for Santosh, learning and accepting a parigraha is very important. Third niyam is tap. Tap is generally translated as austerity or discipline. I have explained it generally as mental hard work. In tap, you find one action to do. It could be a good habit that you want to get rid of. It could be a bad habit. Sorry, it could be a good habit that you want to adopt, and it could be a bad habit that you want to get rid of. Once you've decided the action, now you're also supposed to decide the time period, that I will do this for the next 3 days or I will not do this for the next 3 days. And no matter what, you follow through. That is your tap. Tap is known as tap. Tap means fire or going through fire. Because in tap, we are consciously challenging our mind. And not only are we supposed to consciously challenge our mind, we are supposed to win that challenge. That's why this action is known as tap. Because consciously challenging and winning over our own mind, it is considered as good as going through fire. Fourth niyam is swadhyay. Swadhyay means self-study or introspection, and it is actually swadhyay which makes everything else practical. Because as we may know, all of these principles that I just discussed, they are a part of most other cultures, most other religions, and most other philosophies. Knowledge is very important to us, but if we are not spending time with ourselves every day to actually see whether I was able to adopt this knowledge, then knowledge is remaining only knowledge, it is not turning into wisdom. Swadhyay or introspection is the practice which allows our knowledge to become our wisdom. And the last, the fifth niyam is Ishwar Pranidhan. It translates to surrender to God or surrender to the divine. We can say that there are so many purposes behind putting this principle as the last principle before he talks about all the other practices. One important part of Ishwar Pranidhan is Pranidhan, which means surrender. Because when we start doing our swadhyay, our introspection regularly, some days, unfortunately, our introspection may bring an immense ego boost. And it happens especially on those days when we were able to accomplish a lot of these things. Unfortunately, the ego might say to itself, oh, look at me being all non-violent and whatnot. So to overcome that ego boost, Patanjali put this last principle here, that at the end of the day, whatever I was able to accomplish, I surrendered it back to the universe that gave me the energy to actually accomplish those things.
And now we have asanas, which is only one part of yoga, and pranayama as well. So Aka, can you share more on this?
So asana is the third limb. It comes after niyam and before pranayam. And that is a very important thing to remember because for so many people, asana becomes the end goal. But we must see that it is only the third step out of the 8 limbs, out of the 6 steps that are within our control. So asana is extremely important. The poses are traditionally supposed to be done every single day, unless we are so sick or we have any kind of injury that we cannot practice. Traditionally, that is the expectation that if you're a yogi, you will do the poses, at least a few of them, every single day. But the purpose of the physical practice is to move us into stillness. It is to prepare us for the seated pose that will start in the pranayam practice. And for Raj Yogis, they will remain in that seated pose up until the very last steps. Okay, so whatever our practice has been generally, for example, for me, it has been traditional Hatha Yoga practices. For so many people, it is vinyasa every day. For others, it is Ayanga, restorative, yin, or whichever practice anyone is doing every day. That is the point, that you do it every day without break,
Mm,
unless we are so sick or injured. And I'll just point out here that consistency does not mean practicing a certain number of hours every day. Consistency
mm,
means that you have a foundation in your practice. This could be 5 to 10 poses, this could be 2 to 3 breathing exercises that you are doing every day. Some days when you have a lot of energy, you could practice maybe for 1 hour, maybe for 2 hours. And some days when we don't have that much energy or when we are too busy, it could be just 15 minutes. But that consistency, that foundation is supposed to be there with us as much as possible.
mm.
See, Aka is
Now,
another
in-
guest that's talking about consistency. I don't know if you hear that, but Aka,
Remember,
you are
Yen
another
also
guest that,
mentioned.
yeah, consistency is the key. Yeah, I'm giving you space for the whole answer.
so after asana, the fourth limb is pranayam. And pranayam, yes, it does include so many different breathing exercises, but asana and pranayam have a similarity. In asana, we are doing the different poses to prepare us for stillness in the seated pose. Similarly, in pranayam, we are doing the different breathing exercises to actually slow down our breath as much as possible. The goal in pranayam is our ability to hold our breath longer and longer each time because in the long run it helps us in literally increasing our lung capacity. The greater our lung capacity, the lesser number of breaths we need to take per minute. The lesser breaths we take per minute, the less the burden on our heart. The less the burden on our heart, the longer our life,
Mm.
which literally is the translation of the word. Pranayam is expansion of the life force within us by controlling our breath.
So we can jump right now into Pratyahar and Dhyana.
So Pratyahar is the fifth limb. And in so many traditional books, it has also been called as Setu. Setu means bridge because even though it is a part of the external limbs, the first 5 limbs are known as external limbs, it is still called a bridge connecting the external to the internal. And that shows us the significance of this practice. If I want my practice to move from the external to the internal, I need to practice pratyahar regularly. In pratyahar, what we are supposed to do, we are supposed to focus on our 5 senses one by one. We try to observe them as deeply as we can. And whatever we observe in that moment, we try to accept it consciously. We're not there to change anything. We're not there to fix anything. We're not there to criticize or question anything. Whatever I observe, I accept. And
Mm.
that is the beauty of the words that we can say it exists in Pratyahar. Because even though the practice literally translates to sense withdrawal, the actual practice is of conscious acceptance. Acceptance and withdrawal are together in yogic philosophy because we truly believe I cannot withdraw from something that I have not fully accepted. As long as I'm debating with it, as long as I'm even slightly denying it, I can never step back from it. It will take space in my mind. After Pratyahar, the sixth limb, the last limb that is within our control, is Dharana, which is concentration. And again, here is where our mantra becomes most important. As I said earlier, our mantra was given to us by our guru. At present, so many people are not in that traditional system, so we will have to choose our own mantra. Once you have chosen your mantra, it is supposed to stay your mantra for the rest of your life. And that is why traditionally the mantra was not associated with any other external goals. At present, the word mantra has been interpreted in so many ways. For example, if someone is working on a particular goal, they say that I am working on this, so this is my mantra up until I achieve this. Technically, that is not an incorrect use of mantra, but for yogis, their Bij mantra was something, it was not associated with anything or any external goals. It was just a phrase that they have trained their mind to discipline on. That phrase, whenever they say it out loud or whenever they are repeating it in their mind, it is only having one object, that wherever their mind was moving, whenever they chant that mantra, it brings them back to center. It is not associated with anything else. Yes.
Now, this is something interesting because I don't think I've learned the mantras in this way, but I think it's refreshing to hear what Aka mentioned because obviously when I practice sound healing, there are different mantra for different chakras, and depending on which chakra that you're blocked, then it will associate with different mantras. So I think that one I understand. But when you mention about one particular mantra, then you should go with for the rest of our life. I think this is definitely something I would take note on.
This is actually one of the most traditional practices, and I truly feel that if people took it as seriously as it is supposed to be taken, it would be immensely helpful for so many people. Because, of course, in the present times, we have so many mental health issues, there are so many concerns, not just coming from within, but we are surrounded by a society that makes it easier to
Yeah.
be in the certainness of the mind, to have that one thing that you can give to yourself mentally, which will always provide you stability. It should become a very crucial thing for everyone, not just anyone who is on the path of yoga. And the more we choose to stay by that mantra, the more power, the more discipline you have over yourself. So it's extremely important.
I agree. Now we have the foundations and we have other levels. So what is left in the 8 limbs of yoga? Is it dhyana and samadhi?
So the last two limbs, dhyan and samadhi, meditation and enlightenment. First thing I'll remind you is that Patanjali has said these two are not within our control. These are practices or these are states that happen to us. So I cannot actually say that I am going to meditate. What I can say is that I am going to concentrate. Only by the end of the practice, I will find out whether it turned into meditation or not. So here I will share a little difference between dharana and dhyan, concentration and meditation. Meditation is basically the result of a consistent concentration practice. Once we choose a mantra, we are supposed to focus on it every single day, not just sitting down and chanting it. Actually, whenever my mind is free, whenever I'm not doing anything else, I'm supposed to keep that mantra in my mind no matter what else might be coming. Okay? So once we start in this practice, we are generally in dharana, because dharana has minutes of focus and minutes of distraction. Sometimes I was able to focus, sometimes even though I was chanting my mantra, my mind went in multiple directions. That is still dharana, that is still concentration. But meditation is the result of concentration. Some random day, When you sit down or when you are doing something, you just start repeating your mantra in your mind, and you notice that your mind is not moving in any other direction. Even for 1 second, it did not go anywhere else. That very same day, the same practice, from dharana, it turns into dhyan, into meditation with the same mantra. Last step or last thing that is actually supposed to happen to us is samadhi. Samadhi in Sanskrit itself has multiple names. It is also known as nirvana, moksha, mukti. In English, we call it enlightenment, liberation, or self realization, self being the soul. So, reaching the realization of the soul is known as samadhi. So here I would just point out that the belief in the idea of the soul is required to have the belief in the state of samadhi. Anyone who does not have a belief in the idea of the soul, unfortunately, the steps stop for them at 7 at dhyan, but that is not considered a problem at all. Because how had Patanjali defined yoga? He had said, Yogasya chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is stopping the movements of the mind. For the person who has reached the state of meditation, the movements of the mind have been stopped. They have reached a peaceful state of mind. But for those people who do have a belief in the idea of the soul, it is believed that one random day, when this person is meditating, in that meditation, they will lose the sense of I, they will lose the ego. And because this person has the belief in the idea of the self, they will be able to conclude it themselves that if not only does the ego keep changing throughout life, I can even get away from it. I can actually fully lose it. Then what was the real self? And they will answer that, of course, the real self, the true self, was the soul, which is the permanent reality. That is believed to be one of the last stages of awareness, or one of the highest states of awareness for any human being.
I have something here. So this is the journal, Aka, you created. Can you tell us more? Because it resonates with 8 limbs of yoga, and our listeners will know soon why. Can you tell us more, Aka?
So this is the first journal that I created. It is known as Swadhyaya journal. And if you remember, Swadhyaya is the 4th niyam, self-study or introspection. So this journal can be used by anyone who has learned about the 8 limbs. What I've done in this journal is that I've divided it into 2 parts. In the first part of the journal, the person writes for themselves what the 8 limbs, each of one of them, each of the yam and niyam up until the last limb, what it means to them personally. And in the second half of the journal is where it is a daily journal, where you check in with yourself every day if possible, how much of these practices you were able to adopt. Not only that, you answer to yourself what kind of diet you were consuming, because sattva, rajas, tamas is also very important. It is always affecting us. And if anyone had any tapa, any strict action for themselves or not to do a particular action, that also you write down.
And I have here the second journal you created, the chakra journal. I'm in love in this, and this, like, that was great reminder for me in everyday life how to work with 8 limbs of yoga and with the chakras. And I have the classes with you about the chakras too. So can you tell us more about this journal and about the classes you conducted about chakras?
So the chakra journal is the second journal that I made, and I'm absolutely more proud of it. So what I've done in the chakra journal is that I've divided the journal as per each of the chakras, and each chakra is divided into 7 days. Each day has its own questions, and all of the questions are related to each of the chakras, because the, the 7 major chakras at our spine are related to different aspects of the self. Especially the lower 5 chakras, not only are we affecting them, we are constantly affecting them every moment of every day through our actions, through our words, and through our thoughts. How you are thinking about yourself is controlling especially the lower 5 chakras. So through this journal, through the questions, it is simply to bring awareness to different parts of energy within us related to different aspects of the self. What I do along with the chakra journal is that I run a chakra journal group on WhatsApp, because one day in the book is actually 1 week in real life. So on the Sunday, I send a reminder of what day we are going to go through. I also send certain Ayurvedic and yogic habits related to the chakra. And throughout the week, you don't need to do any external actions unless you want to. But throughout the week, you just allow these questions to come into your mind. And by the next Saturday or Sunday, you write the answers down. And this questioning yourself and coming to a particular conclusion about yourself, at least in the moment, will help you becoming very strongly self-aware. And that is a very important part of getting in touch with our own energy and feeling the strength in it.
We talked about chakras in previous episodes, and I remember the group exercise that Magda, you did about asking different questions for each of the chakras. So for those who have missed it, it's on episode 6 and 7. You can go back to the basics of chakras. But Aka, can you tell us why chakras are so important to yoga?
I know that in the past 2-3 decades it became a very popular topic, but it was always a well-known part of the tradition of the culture, not just in yoga but in Hindu culture anyways, because our pran, our life force, it flows throughout us, not just physically but mentally, and it is believed that also around us. We are surrounded by our own energy. So this pran, this life force, it flows throughout us using thousands of energy channels that are known as nadis. And wherever 2 or more nadis cross or overlap, that point of crossing is known as a chakra. That means even though we are giving it a term of a specific chakra, we are literally talking about our energy. I know that at present it has been termed, the chakra topic has been turned into something exotic and something very different, but actually, energy, our pran, is something that we are again constantly in touch with, and again, our pran, our life force, we are constantly affecting it, not just by what we are consuming, but what we are doing, what we are saying, everything is affecting our energy, hence everything is affecting the chakras. So chakra is not just an important topic in yoga, it is an important topic for all human beings because we are governed by our own energy.
I agree.
I just love the opportunity to learn from you, Aka, not only in my 200 hours, but between classes in everyday life. I remember I once reached out to you on WhatsApp and asked you about Ayurveda because you tell us something about Ayurveda and the school you were learning. You were like so kind and addressed my questions, and I will love to have an opportunity to meet you in class again. And I know there is an opportunity to work with you not only in 200 hours but in yoga retreat, philosophy yoga retreat. Can you tell us more about it?
What I have started doing only since last December is that once a year I hold a retreat, yoga philosophy retreat in Kerala, India. And Kerala is also popularly known as the birthplace of Ayurveda. It may not technically be so, but the thing is, when Hinduism and other parts of the culture, including yoga and Ayurveda, were being put down or suppressed by other rulers, Kerala is one of the places that was actually able to hold that knowledge still together and not allow it to be fully suppressed. And in the retreat, I also discuss Ayurveda and a lot of it. And actually, in the retreat, what I've done is that I've put it through the chakras. So, in the 5 days of retreat, I go through the lower 5 chakras, and through the chakras, I put together the concepts that exist in yoga philosophy as well as Ayurveda together. Okay, so this year as well, I'll be holding the retreat in December from 14 to 20th. And I'll be happy to host as many people as could join, because it's yoga philosophy as itself is of course complete and very good, especially for our mental health, but our physical health is also being constantly affected by the food and the society that we are surrounded by. So that makes personally Ayurveda one of the most important things to share other than yogic philosophy.
I love that Aka mentioned about the food. As a nutritionist, this is definitely one of the huge part when I talk to my client. And I love it how we always incorporate the body, the mind, and the spirit. And we always need to find the balance between all three of them to be able to achieve that well-being or wellness state of life. I'm signing up already, so Aka. India is closer to me, so Magda, I'm not
Yes,
sure about you.
I need to plan this in my, calendar.
Yes.
There will be Aka profiles in the description of this episode. We will tag Aka on Instagram too, so you will have a chance to connect with Aka. Aka, I'm so happy you joined us. It was a really inspiring episode. Just to sum up, because this is your everyday life, what you're talking about, you are teaching others, how this process of teaching others affect your everyday life, how it changed you, maybe it changed you in some way.
It has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. And I know that so many other teachers also resonate with this, because anytime, and I think that's the similarity with all of the people who decided to become teachers, because at some point of time it became important to us in one way or another that when we share this knowledge, either physical knowledge or mental, however it was, to just share this knowledge with others and allow them to experience a safe or comfortable space in which they can learn more about themselves. I think that's what has brought not just happiness but a lot of contentment into my life. And I see that for so many teachers around me as well. So that is the best thing that has ever happened to me, truly.
And now you're very experienced in this journey. And if there's one thing that you can share with somebody who's beginning the yoga part, yoga in general, what would that be?
I would say that don't restrict yourself. I know that in the beginning, especially because, of course, we are in a completely capitalistic world, and once we get our certificates, we want to start earning as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, what happens that in the beginning, people start compartmentalizing for themselves that I will only do this and I will not learn more about this. But actually, it's only in the beginning that you have so much time to learn about as much as possible, to participate in so many different kinds of classes. So, if anyone is just starting, I will ask them to learn about all the different things that exist in yogic philosophy, but not just in yogic philosophy, in any other uh, part of the world. They can gain knowledge in any way, because once you realize, okay, this is the one that is working for me, unfortunately, once you start working in that way, you may not have as much time to do all the other things. So allow
Yes.
your fan, give yourself as many opportunities as possible.
To our listeners, don't forget to stay in touch with Aka. I think for me, I've done my yoga teacher training 6 years ago, and sometimes you do forget the idea of what yoga really truly means. And this is really for me as as a refresher too. So thank you so much, Aka, for your sharing.
I've done it,
Thank you.
3 years ago almost, and it was still a good reminder. So after 3 years, still it's okay. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Aka, for accepting our invitation. It was so lovely to have you here.
So once again, thank you so much, Aka. We'll see you soon in December.
Bye.
Bye. Now, into next week's topic is nutrition. I will talk more about our brain-gut relationship, how our gut health affects our mood. So stay tuned.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Tell us what you think about this episode. And see you next Monday. Bye.
Bye.